Hey everybody, welcome to the Just Be Creative podcast. I'm Krist.
And I'm Katie.
And I am a full-time marketing and brand manager and a graphic designer / artist, freelance. And Katie, what do you do?
I like to take naps and vacation to the beach. Oh, but like what do I do for money?
Okay.
Oh, okay. I am a portrait photographer.
And my spouse.
Oh, yeah.
My wife.
We should have just named this podcast My Wife.
My wife. That would have been a super current, whatever you call it, catchphrase.
Yeah.
Alright, tonight, this episode, we are speaking on Imposter Syndrome. Now, if only we had a succinct definition of Imposter Syndrome, I'll try. I'm kidding, I've never said anything succinctly in my life.
Alright, I actually have the definition of Imposter Syndrome right here on my telephone, which I won't tell you what brand it is because we don't have a sponsorship yet. But
and we're not sure yet if she's the bad character or not.
Imposter Syndrome. It is a noun. It is the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. I'm going to say that again. The persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. And then they have it used in a sentence. People suffering from imposter syndrome may be at increased risk of anxiety. You don't say, Webster Dictionary. Thank you for that. One doubts it's normal for a person to doubt themselves,
okay.
I guess, but instead of persistent inability. So it's not just like moments of self-doubt or moments of questioning yourself, but the persistent belief that you don't deserve your success.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, that's an interesting way to put it. I mean, I guess it makes sense. The way that I typically think of it, though, is more in the outcome, right?
I think of it as I don't belong here. Right.
Like, I'm an imposter. But I guess that's a Websterian way of saying that I don't belong here, i.e., I didn't earn my way to this point.
Yeah.
So, like, the feelings that generally... So, well, I mean, we'll go ahead and both say... I think that a lot of creatives, or I know a lot of creatives, suffer with this. Suffer with the persistent, right, that persistent feeling. Not a, like, I'm the best there is. Like, it's one day somebody's going to find me out, Yeah. Like, I'm just... Or I'm afraid, and we've talked about this before, but like I'm afraid of showing my work. I'm afraid of showing people the stuff I did.
Yeah.
But then once you get into the place where you are showing people your stuff, well then, it's they're just saying they like it, or you get in a place where someone like where you or I are working on a consistent basis for our creative work, we're being paid for it, but then it comes into this like every time, well, I don't want to speak for you, but I'll let you speak to your own experience, but and then I'll comment on it and I'll correct it. That's
all those undertones. No.
Hey, I did get an alert, like a 1 week alert. So a 1 week from today that we're recording this, I will be with you for half of my life.
Aww.
So every day, so starting on September 11th and then on, that's more than half my life that since we started dating. And then, of course, we're engaged and married and all that kind of whatever. But
and obviously, since I'm younger, I've already hit that milestone before. Just to point that out, so I've already been with you for over half my life.
Yeah.
So you've raised me more than my parents have. That's not true, because he didn't teach me how to walk or talk.
I thought you had a Photoshop.
You did. You did teach me how to Photoshop.
Yeah, so well, I don't know what I was saying, but we both experienced this, and I guess to the different degrees that our jobs are different and our work is different. We probably and our personalities are different. We experience it differently. Telling each other like why are you like I'll say this to you, why are you anxious about shooting a school tomorrow? Like you've shot literally thousands of children. And
Photograph. He means photograph, FBI.
they've heard see the FBI heard the first couple episodes.
Oh, and now they know that we're not terrorists.
Now they know that we're not domestic terrorists, but now they're just listening because they like it.
Or so catchy.
The FBI people who are like, man, I wish I would have gone. I always wanted to be a watercolorist.
Yeah, so now there's probably an FBI agent out there
on them.
is serving the country, but also probably started on the side doing his watercolors.
Right. Yes.
Or hers watercolors. Good job, FBI agent. We're proud of you.
I find it to be like it's funnier if it's like a full on like SWAT FBI
with a
man,
like
close crop cut, the kind of cop you see outside of his cop clothing,
and
his costume, and you still like, hey, that's a cop.
Yeah.
He's there, then he's watercoloring, and that's cool too.
Correct. Is I think sometimes it could be mistaken. People might think you're a jerk because you're struggling with imposter syndrome. So one thing that I've had to learn is how to receive compliments.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I hate those.
Yes, because when someone gives you a compliment, it kind of makes you feel awkward. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't suffer from imposter syndrome, it's just sometimes awkward to deal with compliments. And you have to kind of learn to receive compliments because otherwise, if you brush them off, then people might think you're a jerk.
Right. And that's like, I'm consistently having to pretend like I don't think people are stupid for liking my work. That's what's going on in my head.
Oh my God. You can't say that on the podcast, baby.
I'm being... Okay,
but that's the extreme.
Like I don't think like they're a complete idiot if they compliment my work. That's not. But it
You're
is.
Just like how is it that someone's spending their hard-earned money on something I made? Like, why would you do that?
Right, and then you have to realize, okay, it's because they do like. And we've probably said this before, but it's like the fact that anybody would spend any amount of money on anything that I have ever made is in itself like an honor. Right, and they're actually putting their money where their mouth is, especially when it's people you don't know. They just walk up to you off the street, essentially, and like buy something from you that they've seen the first time, and like that's like crazy. Yeah. But then at the same time, I met somebody who was a multi-Grammy award winning musical artist, right? And he was like, "Oh, like I'm a fan of yours," and then like later we had the conversation where
you were like, he has bad taste. You lost respect for him as an artist because he said he was a fan of yours, and so then you were just like, oh man, he has bad taste. Like that's what he did. Like that's how bad imposter syndrome is. Why are we even talking about this? I feel like we should have brought on a licensed practical counselor to walk us through this episode. But we don't have any solutions. We're just telling y'all about our experiences with imposter syndrome.
Well, so
don't ever compliment Krist if you want him to respect you, is pretty much what he's saying. That's why he loves me so much, because I'm so tough on him.
Yeah. But you are always very encouraging. And the times when you're encouraging.
I know, but I had a friend tell me that they would hate to be my husband or my kids because of how rough, like tough I am or raw with y'all are. Like, oh, you could do better. Like, I don't tell you and I don't tell my kids that everything you produce is amazing. Always let all three of y'all know when y'all can do better.
Like the painting that I just did, I'm pretty sure you probably still hate it.
I do.
But
everybody loves it.
But the whole time I was working on it, I could tell you didn't like it. But I was still trying to get your opinion on it as I worked on it.
And I think you would have finished earlier. You wouldn't have worked on it as hard as you did if I just would have been like, this is the most amazing painting I've ever seen. Don't do anything else to it. But I was like, no, it's not done. Keep going.
Right. So all criticism is not, all criticism for is not bad criticism, right?
But I did know when you were done. I was like, yeah, it's done.
Right.
There's nothing you can do to save it now. I didn't say that till just now, this moment. But I was like, yeah, I think you're right.
But I'm saying that to say, like, I can trust you. Like, we've worked together enough to a point where, like, you can give me those kind of honest opinions. I don't need... Well, that's another thing, too. I don't need you to tell me you like it or not. Because some of my best received work has been stuff that you don't like.
Oh, yeah, like the she-wolf. I hate the she-wolf. Yeah. People love the she-wolf. But even, this reminds me, I can even remember when you were in a band and y'all were recording an album. So you were 18, 19 years old. I remember going with you to record. And, like, you recorded it solo. And I was like, no, you need to do that again. And you know what? The world is better now. Thanks to me.
Better books.
Critical, no. I mean, that's okay, but you can do better. Go back in there and do that again. So.
Whenever you're still encouraging, and you're often very encouraging, especially whenever I'm having, like, moments of doubt and things like that, or suffering with, you can't be outside of yourself, right? Yeah. But I think as you recognize that this is an issue, and I think that, like, do we have answers for this? Not necessarily, but if you're feeling this way, like, know that it's normal. So it is good to have people who are encouraging you. And it's good to have people that are going to be truthful and honest with you. Both of those things are good. Like, whenever, like, the couple art classes that I did take in school, like, one of the things you do is you complete a piece of work, and then you have to go stand up next to it in front of the whole class, and people give their opinions to you. In front of the whole class. So that's something that you learn to do, but your work, like you said, your work is better for it. And it's like, I don't want you to stand in front of my work and say, like, oh, it's beautiful. Like, I want you to tell me, like, saying, oh, it's beautiful doesn't necessarily help me move on to the next level. Telling me what could be better about it helps me move on to the next level. But then, overall, like, not necessarily piece by piece, but plan, or like step by step of my life, or like things I'm trying to move into, you're very encouraging of that.
Oh. Are we talking about imposter syndrome or encouragement here? Maybe this should be titled How to Guide Your Spouse Through Imposter Syndrome, because that's what we do a lot with each other. Because, like we said, we both suffer from it a lot. And I do all the time. Have from the beginning, but then when I look at my beginning work, I'm like, no wonder why I had imposter syndrome. Like, shouldn't I feel that way now? But your work, we've already talked about this, your work can always be better. But, okay, so...
That's kind of what we'll go back to the definition of that, at least. Okay. Well, I mean, we don't literally have to read it. I just mean, in terms of, when you're just starting out, you shouldn't feel like you've...
But you're not successful yet,
you shouldn't feel like your success is, and that's what we've talked about really, like, your success when you're starting out is that you are starting out and you don't quit. Like, I mean, yeah, of course, like, you're going to make stuff that you like and that kind of thing, but, like, really, like, that is the success that you can look back on and say, I didn't like those things at that time, but you didn't give up, you kept moving forward.
Yeah, that's true. But then it's still something, I always think there's a phrase in the photography industry that's called a mommy with a camera. And, which is pretty much just like when the digital revolution hit, and then, it's easy to have, it's more affordable now to have a nice camera and to take good pictures, which just wasn't available when things were filmed. And I'm always constantly struggling with the fact that I am not a professional photographer, that I'm just a mommy with a camera. And I don't, honestly, to my discredit, I don't belong to any professional affiliations. Like, there are professional photography affiliations that I could apply to. I mean, that's another topic for another day, because I don't see a need for that. But then I'm just like, okay, like, I really don't. I'll say all the time, well, I don't feel like a professional photographer, and you'll be like, always know what to say when I say that. All right, I'll just test you. I just don't feel like a professional photographer. You always say people pay you to take that picture.
I feel like my response is like, but you literally are.
That's always your response.
Professional means you're doing it as a job.
And side note, it doesn't help when people tell me, "Oh, your pictures look so professional," which now I'm a little bit snarkier now in my older age. When people tell me I look professional, "Oh, this looks so professional," I say, "I sure hope it does," because people pay me for it. So
yeah, well, like the time my parents got in the mail like an invitation, I guess, like our first baby shower or something like that. Mom's like, "Oh, this looks really nice. I wonder where this came from." And my nephew Christian, who's like 10 years younger than me, he was like, "Nana, the uncle." Like, Krist probably made that. She was like, "It looks so..." And then later, that was a compliment that they would give me early on in my career as, things looking professional. I'm like, I literally am professional. That's what
it's not a compliment when you say, "Oh, this looks so professional."
That's just something people say.
But they try to. I mean, they have the best.
They won't mean it.
They mean it looks good.
Word, right?
Yeah, they mean it looks good.
But that's but if you feel like an imposter in your profession and somebody says it looks professional, then that actually shouldn't be disheartening to you. You should be like, oh yeah, it should look professional because I am a professional. Thank you for affirming my profession.
Okay, so speaking of imposter syndrome, which is what we're speaking of, so why did I say speaking of? I don't know. And so like I said, to me, it feels like I don't belong here. How do you feel when you go to things with other artists? Like if you go to another artist's gallery, or if you go to some type of creative meetup, or like the award ceremony and stuff. How do you feel in those situations?
Do you really want to know?
Hey y'all, thanks for listening to this episode. You can hear the rest of our conversation in part 2 of Imposter Syndrome, which will premiere 1 week after this episode. Please subscribe and give us a rating, and you can find the links to all of our social media at justbecreativepod.com.